Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lord of Dragons. I'm Jack, and today we are talking about what is coming up for us on Season 2 of House of the Dragon, and is there a lot to come? My oh my. So we're going to start out somewhere kind of between the Green and the Black Council, if you will. Some of the events of the book are a little bit different than the show, obviously, but I think the show is bringing us the real version of events, since the book is kind of a outline of three different points of views. As we know, the way the Green Council went, Lord Beesbury was the first death, the first technical blood of the Dance of the Dragons, but he will not be the last by any means. Now, the way the Black Council went was mainly what I want to talk about here, about how different it was than the show laid on. They kind of made Daemon angry and mad and ready to go to war, and Rhaenys the logical one. And I'm not saying that it was opposite in the books. I'm just saying that in the books, Rhaenys points out that they have more dragons than the queens, and that dragons are how they will win the war. Well, Daemon's more about restraint, and he doesn't want to use the dragons unless they have to use the dragons. He knows that dragons can kill dragons, and mainly he points out he wants to win this war with words first. And at this point that they decided to send out their requests to the different lords to back Rhaenyra and to see how it went, they didn't want to jump to conclusions, and that was somewhat more of Daemon's doing than Rhaenyra's or Rhaenys. I mean, Rhaenyra didn't want her sons fighting on dragon back right off, so there was that, but there was some bit of talking there at first. The sad thing about the Green Council is that one thing that's different from the show and the book is how long it was between Rhaenyra finding out and Viserys actually dying, basically. You know, because in the books, they leave Viserys in his bedchamber for a week before they tell anybody he's dead. They've got everybody locked up that knows about it. He's starting to stink so bad that it's stinking up Maegor's Holdfast, and people are starting to make up theories and ask questions. So basically, they have to tell people he's dead, and at that point, Aegon's kind of like, am I king or not? If I am, crown me. So they decide to plan his coronation, and they decide to do that in the Dragon Pit because it can hold 80,000 people. There's different accounts of how many people were there. Some say it was full, some say it was just half full. It doesn't really matter. We know the scene with Meleys that we saw in the show does not happen in the books. Also, really doesn't matter much because the coronation happens. Aegon becomes the official king, but it doesn't go so well in the beginning for the Greens, really. I mean, we know that the first real blood is Lucerys' death at the end of season 1 from Aemon. Whether that was accidental on purpose is to be questioned, but obviously it looked intentional to us, but maybe accidental to others. Who knows? But how Aemon's going to respond and treat it's a whole other thing. At this point, it doesn't matter. He's got to go with it. It happened, and the dance is officially on. And so now it's on the Blacks to respond. And I hope I pointed out that there was a spoiler alert for this video. Total spoiler alert. So now it's up to the Blacks to respond. Son for son. And we know that leads us to the beginning of season 2 officially, where some people think we're gonna cold open with Blood and Cheese. And that could be Blood was a gold cloak who had his cloak taken away for beating a whore too badly. basically, and Cheese is the rat catcher, and they know their way around, and ultimately they're hired by Misery the whore, Damon's whore, and they admit that under torture, because the thing is, after this happens, after Helena's oldest son is killed, Jaehaerys, they catch Blood like 9 days later trying to leave the city with the boy's head in a bag, and he admits that he's trying to go get his reward at Harrenhal from Daemon, and that he was hired by Misery. So that much we know is to come. We all know how that kind of happens, and that really does pretty much sink how we see Helena after that. I don't know if she ever really comes out of that. I don't think she ever participates officially in the dance after that. We'll have to see it in part 2, but in part 1, not so much here. But after that, it does say that she's so lost that Alicent has to take over her children, and that her and Aegon don't sleep together in the same room anymore. And so she's just kind of beside herself. At first, I wondered if Alicent was the real target of that, because they went to Alicent's room, but once they got there and found Alicent, killed her bedmate and tied her up or whatever, they knew when Helena was going to be coming, and they did wait for Helena, and they did say they had to kill a son, because Helena begs them to kill her instead of one of the children, and they say it can't be, it has to be a son for a son, blah blah blah. But what I really want to get to is all the stuff that really happens after that. This is when it really starts heating up, in my opinion, because now it's kind of up to the Greens to respond, and a lot goes against them. A lot of stuff goes in favor of the Blacks early on, and we see that in how quick they pick up other houses. I guess I should point out that before that, we saw that part at the end of season 1 where Otto goes to Dragonstone and makes an offer to Rhaenyra. It wasn't Otto that goes in the books. It was Grand Maester Orwyle that goes, and he takes Arik Cargill and Gwaine Hightower with him, and surprisingly they do let them all live, but they take Grand Maester Orwyle's chain and she puts it on her own Maester Gerardus at Dragonstone, and she gets pretty much the same offer we see in the show, and she refuses pretty quickly and calls Otto and Alicent traitors and rebels, and Aegon calls for their death immediately when they refuse his proposal. Rhaenyra had declared Otto and Alicent traitors and rebels, but she had said she would forgive her brothers and whatever if they would bend the knee. Obviously, we knew that wasn't going to happen, and we knew again Aegon really didn't want to be king, but until Alicent convinced him that if he didn't, he and his brother and sister would be killed by Rhaenyra, so he sort of felt like he didn't have a choice. As far as it looks in the beginning, it looks really bad for Rhaenyra's side at the beginning, because King's Landing and Aegon's side have a lot of money behind them. Tyland takes all the money in King's Landing and divides it up. He puts part of it in the Iron Bank for safekeeping, part of it at Casterly Rock, and then part of it for bribes. But on the side of the Greens, you have Old Town, which is the first richest city, King's Landing, which is the second, and then Lannisport, which is the third richest city at the time. So the top 3 richest cities in the realm all side with the Greens. Rhaenyra still does have the wealth of House Velaryon, which is right there, probably in 4th place. I think at one point they were the top richest house in the realm, but it kind of goes again with my theory on the richest house in the realm is the one that's always after the throne the hardest, like we've seen the Lannisters in Game of Thrones, and I don't know, it's not so much of a theory as it is obvious, I guess. So it looks bad for Rhaenyra, and at the very beginning they say we don't have enough power to defeat even the Hightowers alone if they were to march against us. And so that's part of why they know that they can't just jump into a dragon war. They have to use words, they have to to plan this out, and they send out all their ravens. Now it's about this time that Daemon takes off to Harrenhal, knowing that it's the place they need to sink in the Riverlands, and he takes House Strong, which is being held by, I think, the former Lord Strong's uncle, whatever, and there is a good amount of money still with House Strong, so not that it's a battle or anything, he just takes it, but it is quite a victory in a way, because a lot of the River Lords do start flocking to Rhaenyra's side, and that's when things start getting a lot better for Team Black. The Freys of the Twins come to her side, the Blackwoods of Raventree, the Mootons of Maidenpool, the Pipers of Pink Maiden Castle, the Roots of Harroway, the Derrys of Derry, the Malisters of Seaguard, the Vances of Wayfarer's Rest, Lord Grim of Greyshield, Lord Costain of Three Towers, Lord Mullendor of Uplands, Lord Tarley of Hornhill, and Lord Rowan of Golden Grove, maybe. I think that's what it is. But yeah, as you can see, Daemon instantly pulls in a lot of support in the Riverlands, and despite all the support he pulls in, Grover Tully is quick to want to side with Aegon, but unfortunately for House Tully and Aegon, Lord Grover is ancient and dying and has not got long to live, so his grandson, Sir Elmo Tully, decides that they will take no part. They stay neutral, they bar their gates, so House Tully's officially neutral at the moment. And on top of all that, Jace is making the rounds. He goes up to the Vale, of course, and gets Lady Jane Eyre. How? That's questionable. We're going to find out. Is it through sedacious acts or by promising to send her dragon riders, which is what she wants to protect the Vale? We will find out, but he gets the Vale of Arryn, and then he goes and stops at the Three Sisters and gets their support. He goes up to White Harbor and makes a promise to wed Joffrey to one of Lord Manderly's daughters after the war is over, and so Jace is raking in some lords as well, and it really makes a big difference inside. Team Rhaenyra really looks good for her. Now, the Lords Tyrell officially, initially they sided with Aegon, but after House Beesbury thinks that Lyman's being held in the dungeons instead of dead, the Tyrells decided, on second thought, we're gonna stay neutral on this one. We don't want involved. So it's blows like that. The Greens are taking blows one after another because a lot of people are siding with Rhaenyra. It's not long after they find out how Stark and all these other lords are siding with Rhaenyra. Jace goes up there and makes the Pact of Ice and Fire with Cregan, and I think it's where we're going to find out the pact is like Stark must always be in Winterfell and Targaryen must always be on the Iron Throne, and that's our pact. And so things are looking grim for the Greens, and that's when Aegon starts getting kind of pissed at his hand, Otto, and Otto's trying real hard to pull a rabbit out of a hat. But speaking of that Pact of Ice and Fire with Jace and Cregan, there's that talk of a Winterfell wedding. I want to know if we are going to see a secret Winterfell wedding in the Godswood between Sarah Snow and Jacaerys. Wouldn't that be awesome? It's going to be awesome going back to Winterfell anyway, and everything we might see, but it's overall supposed to be kind of a short trip. But supposedly we're going to see more Lord Stark this season for other things, and we do know he has a huge role to play at the very end of the Dance of the Dragons, and we're going to talk more about that in part 2 of this video. When does Cregan come in, and where are they going to end the series, mainly is where that question comes up. So back to our dance, back to our war. Rhaenyra's getting all these people on her side. House Velaryon, they've blocked off the stepstones and the Gully battle it. They've got Melees helping, flying over the ships, keeping people away. And now no trade can get into King's Landing. So all these captains are coming to Aegon. They're pissed. They're saying, what's going on? What are you doing? And nobody's declaring for him. And he's like, what's going on? So then Lord Blackwood decides to draw first blood on their end of things in the southern part of the Riverlands, and they attack House Bracken, and there's a big back and forth there. Lord Bracken kills Lord Blackwood, but then Lord Bracken's killed by Lord Blackwood's sister, which is Black Aly, which she has a role later on. I'm not sure if she'll be in the dance later on, but she does come up later on. So there's that. Lord Bracken, he eventually retreats, or the new Lord Bracken, whatever, but then he finds Daemon at Stonehenge waiting for him, and they've taken the castle, and that's another big defeat on Aegon's side, and they call that the Battle of the Burning Mill eventually. And so between the blockade and the River Lords, the Greens are not having a very good time. They've got King's Landing, they've got the money, they've got the throne, they've got the crown, whatever. They don't have Viserys' old crown. Rhaenyra's got that. And that's Steffon Darkling that brings the crown to her in the book. A little different than the show, but anyway, they got all that, but blacks are out there really playing wise, and they really want to find a way to get King's Landing, but Aegon's about had enough of his hand, Otto, and eventually he decides it's time to stop using words and trickery, because, Otto, he tries to gain the help of the Triarchy, but they're not in any quick rush to help him, and so that doesn't really go very well for him, and Aegon finally rips his chain off and puts it on Sir Criston Cole, and Sir Criston is the new hand. And so Sir Criston decides we are going to take action immediately. It's time to do something. No more letting them win. And so that's when he goes on the attack, and House Rosby and House Stokeworth. Well, actually, before Sir Criston decides to attack, we can't forget their first plan is to send Sir Ark to Dragonstone to kill Rhaenyra or to kill Jace. That's kind of a debate in the book which he was sent to kill, but eventually, after easily getting into the castle, he runs face to face with his brother, and we know a fight breaks out. We know they kill each other. Mushroom says it was a quick fight. Others say it was a long, drawn-out fight. We know they kill each other, and when that backfires, Criston Cole decides to go on the attack finally, and that's when he decides to march on Rosby and Stokeworth, and he easily takes both of those, gets them to bend the knee, and joins their armies to his, the small armies that they are, and so they easily sneak up on Duskendale after that, and it's at Duskendale that they behead Lord Darkling, and they sack the city, burn the town, and I think we've seen that in the preview for the trailer for season 2 a few times. And so Criston Cole gets in a few victories real fast, real quick there, kind of heading towards the Riverland areas, taking Rosby, Stokeworth, and Duskendale on the way. But after that, it is Rook's Rest that he is ultimately headed for, and it's there that he goes and he lays siege to Lord Staunton's city, and I think this goes on for about 9 days or so, where Lord Staunton's sending a message to Dragonstone, begging Rhaenyra for help. For whatever reason, it's Rhaenys that shows up to help Lord Staunton on Meleys, and she falls right into Sir Criston's trap, and that trap, of course, is King Aegon himself, and his brother One-Eye Aemon on Vhagar and Sunfire, and they are waiting there. I think they were originally hoping that it was Rhaenyra or Jace or all of them that showed up, but they get Rhaenys and she shows up, but we're gonna see one hell of a dragon fight after the Battle of Rook's Rest. Rhaenys is gonna go down, unfortunately, because I really like her. She's one of my favorite characters, but she's gonna go down, but she's not gonna go down without one hell of a fight. She's going to take Sunfire down. She's gonna rip a wing off him, and she badly messes up Aegon with dragon fire, and it's gonna be awesome to see. He does live through it though, but she does not. At the end, she dies after taking Aegon down, and so after that, things start turning around for the Greens, and they've taken down a dragon, and they've taken down Rhaenys, and Corlys is pissed at Rhaenyra and thinks it should have been her, according to what it says in the book, and it kind of creates a rift between them, though he still knows that he has to stick around and see things through, and they plan out some attacks after this, but they are going to march Meleys' head through the city after that, and it's going to create a riot in King's Landing, or so it seems in the trailer. We know in the book that thousands of people leave King's Landing after that, and Alicent orders the gates shut because I actually don't know why she orders the gates shut. That's a good question. That's something we're going to have to look at in part 2 of this video. And we are going to look at where we think not only season 2 of the show will end, but we're going to try and look at where we think the entire series will end for the Dance of the Dragons, and we will talk about whether or not we think there will be more House of the Dragon shows after this, or if there'll be shows with entirely different names. So that's what we're going to discuss. I just wanted to give you a warm-up because I know everybody's talking about Blood and Cheese and Rook's Rest and everything that's going to happen at the beginning of the season with Jace going to Winterfell, but I kind of wanted to touch on some of the other small stuff happening, it just to show you kind of where the battle's at between who stands where. The Blacks have a lot of support, a lot of houses honor their oaths, and a lot of others don't, but there's a lot of rifts going on in this Dance of Dragons, and now that King Aegon is badly burned, his brother, the One-Eye Aemon, is going to step in as Prince Regent of the realm, and he will take over for a while as good old Aegon is all milk of the poppied up in bed. So we all have that to look forward. It's going to be interesting to see what a burned Aegon looks like, but I still don't think that's quite going to be the end of season 2. I think Rook's Rest, the battle's going to be near the end. I don't know. We're going to talk about this next episode, so come back and join us. Episode 2, part 2 of this video will be out very soon. Stick around for it. That is our quick look at season 2. We will be back for more here on Lord of Dragons. I'm Jack, and I appreciate you being with me. We'll see you again soon in part 2. Bye.
Our terms are very simple. Renounce the false king and bend the knee to the king, or your house burns.
When the desire to kill and burn takes hold and reason is forgotten, we will not even remember what began the war in the first place.
Hold to your courage for the one true King Aegon!
Which days exactly? The ones where half of Westeros fought the other half and millions died? Or before that? When the mad king slaughtered women and babies because the voices in his head told him they deserved it? Or way before that? When dragons burned whole cities to the ground?
Easy, boy. You might be my brother, but you're speaking to the king.